All right, we're going to read a little of Elvis and Kathy. Sitting out here on the porch. It was raining this afternoon. The dogs are waiting to probably EAT. But they got to wait a little bit. All right, we're going to get started here. Oh, I had to let the dogs out. So we were reading. This chapter is about Elvis's fans. And Kathy has been talking about all the terrible ones that were going after her and calling her and stalking her house and threatening to hurt her. And so it's just kind of crazy, huh? All right, so now she's talking about, I think now she's going to talk about something different. Okay, here we go. Before each performance, there will be the usual hustle and bustle, checking lighting, sound, and the last-minute wardrobe problems. But as the minutes ticked away, the frenetic activity became organized confusion. It was in this kind of backstage atmosphere I would walk to Elvis's dressing room, where we would say a prayer. Suddenly, all the activity seemed far removed from our concerns as we prayed silently, or sometimes Elvis would voice his own prayers. Bless this performance, and may it reach people and lift their spirits, if it be God's will. Give us the strength to glorify you with our talents and our gifts. Wow, so that would be a prayer that Elvis would speak. He would ask God to bless the performance and may it reach people and lift their spirits, because he felt like he was here on earth to entertain and help people to step away from their normal, routine, everyday life and have fun at one of his concerts and be rejuvenated. So he prayed for that. Their spirits will be lifted and give us the strength to glorify you with our talents and our gifts. Wow. We prayed together early in our relationship, and later on when we were separated, we both said our prayers privately before going on stage to face a screaming audience. If there were special problems or emotional strains at the time, Elvis would ask me to come to his dressing room to pray for help with these also. It was a perfect way to start a show for us. It made both of us feel renewed and gave us added energy and determination to make each performance as outstanding as possible. So he would ask her to come so they could pray about any special problems or emotional strains that he was having at the time. Interesting. Now we're starting to see maybe these are some of the ways that she became such a close friend of his. He trusted her to come in and pray with him. But not the entourage, not all the people, the bodyguards and the friends, but he would ask her. Okay. There was a thrill being on the same stage as Elvis because he vibrated excitement. It is hard to explain, but I can compare it to the feeling of being electrified. The adrenaline began surging through me, pumping so powerfully I would shake all over, not from fear, but from the constant excitement. Sometimes I would think my body couldn't handle it because I just trembled, shook, and quivered, maybe not always outwardly, but inside. Wow. It's almost like what Elvis felt. He felt like he had electricity. He told June he felt like he had electricity going through his body when he was performing on stage. And now he's transferring that to Kathy. I wonder if the other people felt that also. I loved the music because it always inspired me, even when we had done some numbers 1,000 times. For instance, Bridge Over Troubled Waters would reach deep into my soul and lift my spirit to tremendous heights. I would say to myself, thank God for that song, for that experience we just had singing it. Wow. Isn't that amazing? The experience of singing that song. Gosh, the experience I have hearing it. I love that song. Oh my gosh. Yes, Elvis moved constantly on the stage, and he never did the same song quite the same way. And sometimes he would throw a song into the program that took all of us by surprise. But I will say he kept us on our toes. There were never two performances alike because Elvis wouldn't let that happen. His own personality would rebel if things remained constant. I have often thought if Elvis had been in a Broadway play, saying the same lines night after night, he would have driven the director and the playwright crazy because he would have changed something in every performance. He had such a sense of his audience, he just knew what they would like, what they would resent, what they would relate to, and what would turn them off. I've seen hundreds of performers and have worked with a great number of different stars, but I have yet to see anyone like Elvis who could twist and change an entire program without missing a beat. He was incredibly creative, yet was in command every moment on stage. I've thought that before. I feel like when he's on stage, he is like directing everybody. Directing the singers, directing the musicians, directing the orchestra. Once in Vegas, Elvis said after a performance, "Now, for the first time in my life, I have everything the way I want it." And he did. He had the top musicians in the country and the singers and instrumentalists that could embellish things where he wanted them. He could go with high voices like mine or low voices like J.D. Sumner. Elvis, unlike many stars, wasn't at the mercy of bands and singers who had never worked with him before. We were all veterans, and we could anticipate his every movement and his sudden whims. Well, we could anticipate them most of the time, but he really delighted in surprising us, trying to throw us off. Yeah, remember Scotty Moore used to say that they would know where they were in a song by the way Elvis's butt would move, or how he would move. And Ronnie Tutt, the drummer, said he would watch Elvis's butt to keep the beat. Oh, gosh. Elvis told me about organizing his first show in Las Vegas. I told them to get me the best Southern male gospel quartet they could find, the best black female gospel group that existed, and a classical soprano. I hired James Burton, the legendary guitar player, to find the best rhythm section he could find for me. I wanted my show to have the best talent available, and I've got it. I admired him for having the sense to know that if you want to please a Vegas crowd, you must have a wide variety of instruments and vocalists on that huge stage. It's often been tempting for big superstars to overestimate their ability to hold the Vegas crowd's attention for 2 hours with just a handful of musicians up there. Vegas crowds include such a large cross-section of the country that one must offer a tremendous variety of entertaining tricks or secrets to hold their attention. On stage, Elvis always looked to us for approval if he thought the feeling of a strong song was extraordinary. He would look directly into my eyes sometimes and say with his penetrating, expressive eyes, "Ooh-wee, do you feel this?" Look to us for approval if he thought the feeling of a song was extraordinary. He would look directly into my eyes sometimes and say, with his penetrating, expressive eyes, "Ooh-wee, do you feel this?" I've seen him look over there. I see him look over there at the musicians the gospel singers and the sweets and Kathy and some of the video footage. "Ooh-wee, do you feel this?" Once in a while, he would be criticized by the audience for playing off his group too much, like we were all in his living room singing to each other. Sometimes, if I let my mind wander during an all too familiar segment of the show, Elvis would say right into the microphone, "Kathy, you'd better watch me. Look up. Keep your eyes on me." He could see if I was daydreaming just a little, while I was still smiling and in motion with the music. He always knew if my mind wandered for even a second. So he's over there making sure they're paying attention. I think the only real love affair Elvis ever had was with his fans. He had the special ability in his delivery of a song to make almost every person believe, and most still believe, that he was singing directly to them and to them alone. I hear that comment every time I appear anywhere, even today. He told me once that he hated production numbers. We were doing this television show for ABC, and it was filled with production numbers, and I hated the entire idea. So at the last minute, I decided to go out and sit in the center of the audience and sing. I felt comfortable, and the fans seemed to really enjoy it. I wonder when that was. Because I thought NBC did the 68 special, but that sounds like the 68 special. Elvis brought to this troubled planet Earth a new form of music. It lifted our spirits. It excited us. Sometimes they were happy, trivial little songs like Hound Dog and Teddy Bear. It was fun music, but it reached everyone's heart. Still, there was a sense of humor in his music that appealed to men and women and children alike. When I think of Elvis singing, I can't help thinking of Maharishi Yogi writing, "A singer's influence depends on the inner quality of his heart. Many are born in a higher stage of consciousness, just as a stone in a diamond mine is already cultured in the past." It is obvious to me that Elvis Presley was one of those rarities who sang for all of us from his heart. He made us all feel that one needn't be schooled like a Vic Damone or Frank Sinatra to enjoy singing. If he could sing, we all could sing. He spoke for his generation through music, and they responded with warmth and generosity. Sometimes I would peer out to the audience from backstage and see every inch of surface covered with moving heads, arms, and shoulders of people, giving an overall effect of an ocean with brilliant colored lights in the sky. I would hear the dim roar, feel the stage vibrating with movement under my feet, and I would wonder why I was doing this. Like, why am I doing this? For a period of time, I had wanted out of the show more than anything in the world. I prayed and prayed that I would be led where God wanted me to be, and yet I was still there. So I found myself believing that here is where He wanted me to be. Now as I look back, it all makes more sense to me that I stayed on. But at the time, it didn't make any sense at all. He needed her. He needed her on stage with him, and he needed her as a friend. Perhaps we all stayed through the grueling travel, the craziness of some of the fans, the threats, the heartbreak, because we all knew we were a part of something mysterious and awesome, something that would never happen again in show business. Once I was on stage and thought, I want to remember every detail of this, every moment, every movement, every sound. I want to hold it in my memory because this will never, never happen again to me or to anyone else. I am part of something much bigger than I understand now, so I must be able to recall every second of it. Wow. She knew while she was on stage to appreciate every single minute, every single movement, every sound. Elvis would make his audience feel right at home, as if he was having them over to his place for a visit. He would kiss the ladies as he sang, or hand out colorful scarves to fans who would kill to get one. Hands were always grasping. People were always waving and shouting for his attention while he was performing. Yet he looked so at ease, so relaxed. But those of us on stage knew that when he took a stance or moved around, he was very aware of everything going on around him. Like, how could he do that? How could he be aware of everything, yet be so relaxed, enjoying back and forth camaraderie with the crowd, the audience, joking around, singing powerful songs, fun songs, goofing off, bouncing back and forth off of his background singers, his musicians, yet still being aware that someone could do something. But yet he seemed so relaxed. That's why I think a lot his body was absorbing so much of that. And that also affected his health. Because the stress. His karate training aided in extending his awareness of the crowd. Oh. It was as if he had eyes in the back of his head. He literally knew when someone was going to make a move toward the stage to get to him without actually ever seeing them. This awareness became uncanny at times and was just one of those supernatural gifts Elvis possessed that those around him could never understand. God probably gave that to him knowing that he would need it one day. Gave him the desire to learn karate and kind of gave him, well, he had that sixth sense. It was part of that sixth sense thing. It's a gift from God. He even had a special way to hold his body when passing out scarves or leaning down for a kiss, so that if someone pulled him especially hard, he would not topple off the stage, which was usually 7 feet high or even more if security demanded it. During the shows, girls would scream, "Give me a kiss, Elvis, I want a kiss." This was soon followed by the guys yelling, "I want a kiss from Kathy." Oh my gosh. The first time I agreed to oblige a male fan, I was almost yanked off the stage. She did that? Oh my gosh. I've never seen anything like that ever in all of the footage. I guess when they're filming for TV, for movies and documentaries and stuff, they don't film that kind of stuff. But she obliged a male fan and she was almost yanked off the stage. It was after that show, Elvis decided he better instruct me on how to keep my balance. It was actually a karate stance whereby I could make physical contact with the fans while maintaining a center of gravity by positioning my weight on my back leg. I understand that. I do. I understand that. It's the balancing. It's what I do when I'm climbing. Even at 63, when I'm climbing on the counter. Got to have your weight balanced in your foot, your back leg. After numerous bomb threats averaging 4 a day, not to mention countless death threats and kidnap threats I mentioned earlier, Elvis began shopping for guns and ended up with hundreds. Hundreds. He called me into his bedroom one evening in Las Vegas, saying he wanted to talk to me. "I want you to have something so you can protect yourself," he said. Then he presented me with a Colt 22 that looks like a 38, an unusual gun. It's a big pistol, really. "I'd like to give you a little Derringer you could carry in your purse, but they're not safe. They can go off in your purse, and they're not as deadly." So Elvis telling her that he wanted to give her a Derringer, but it can go off in her purse, so they're not safe, and they're not as deadly. So instead, he gave her a Colt 22. Whew. Elvis showed me how to use it and how to clean it and care for it. He taught me to always leave the first chamber empty in case I dropped it or someone accidentally pulled the trigger. He was careful to emphasize that I should take professional lessons and go to a shooting range so that I would know how to handle the gun responsibly. I wonder if Elvis ever did that. Well, he was in the Army and learned how to shoot guns in the Army. But I wonder if he ever went to a range because, I mean, by the 70s, it had been 11, 12 years, 13 years more, depending by the time you're in the middle of the 70s, that he had been in the Army. So I wonder if he ever did any refresher trainings. Some of the bodyguards and experts in protection thought Elvis was too close, too intimate with his audience. They felt he should not get so near, not touch and hug and kiss during a performance, because they feared for his life. But that would not have been Elvis Presley. The major reason he had given up motion pictures was that he was not able to see or hear his audience. He knew they were out there by the number of tickets they bought to see his movies, even the bad movies. But he couldn't feel their reaction, couldn't hear their cheers, couldn't see their faces. So he took to the road and his audiences became part of his show. That's the way he liked it, the way he performed best. One time, when we were just relaxing and talking in his suite, he said, "Kathy, when I was doing those stupid movies, it drove me crazy. I decided to quit. Finally." Well, he finally got out of the contract, but he didn't want to renew it, so he got out. "Kathy, when I was doing those stupid movies, it drove me crazy. I decided to quit finally, and the colonel had a psychiatrist come in and tap hammers on my head. I just had my fill of that shit, and they all thought I was crazy." And then he leaned back and laughed with great gusto, really enjoying the memory of that psychiatrist and the attempt to get him back on the screen and more of those meaningless movies. I keep thinking how much all of us would have missed if Elvis had decided he was crazy and had stayed in Hollywood. Wow. I've never heard that. That they tried to talk him into doing another contract. Oh my gosh. He's like, "No way. I have had my full fill of this. I need to get back to performing in front of a live audience." And he leaned back and laughed with great gusto, enjoying the memory of that psychiatrist and the attempt to get him back into the movies. I've heard people say who had only seen Elvis in movies that once they saw him perform live, their opinion of him changed immediately. I never realized what a powerful personality he really is, what magnetism he projects. He seems to pull you in and hug you even though you are 200 feet away. You have to see Elvis in person to fully appreciate his talent, they would tell me. Those of us on the show knew that. We saw proof of it every day on tour. Oh my gosh, I wish I could have seen him live. Wow. I wonder if Daddy had ever taken me to see Elvis when he was in Charlotte, Fayetteville, Greensboro, Asheboro. Any of those times we could have gone. If I would have changed and been a bigger Elvis fan than Glenn Campbell. I love me some Glenn Campbell. Oh my goodness. But I really liked Elvis's music too. But I didn't know him well enough. You know, I had just heard him on the radio a little and saw a couple of the things on TV, 68 Special, and That's the Way It Is. And but I remember being in Charlotte one time and driving by the auditorium and seeing Elvis Presley. We were so close. We could have gone. But we didn't. But I would have loved to have experienced all the stuff that people talk about. Oh my gosh. Those of us on the show knew that. We saw proof of it every day on tour. And generally speaking, his audiences felt a fierce protection of him. One night in Vegas, 3 karate experts staged an attack, and 2 of them jumped up on the stage ready to take him on. Elvis used his own karate training and sent one flying backwards with a blow and a kick. Still, they almost got him, but the bodyguards were too fast for them and dragged them away. As the security men were carrying the guys out, the audience, obviously angry, began beating on the assailants with purses, menus, and napkins. Had the men not been protected by the guards, the audience would have torn them up limb by limb. They were lucky to get out of that place alive. As it turned out, the men had long police records, and one was such a powerful karate expert that his fists were registered and on file with the police as deadly weapons. Dang. They were quick. But Elvis was quicker, and that saved him. Wow. That guy's fists were registered with the police as deadly weapons. Wow. Afterwards, Elvis was badly shaken and full of mystified surprise. Why would they want to do that? Why would they want to hurt me? I've never done anything to them, he said over and over. Why would they want to do that? I've never done anything to them. Why do they want to hurt me? Why, indeed. Who knows? He was a big star, a world-famous celebrity. Maybe they just wanted their names in the paper, or maybe they wanted to be the ones who had nailed Elvis. Whatever the reason, they did make the attempt, and everyone kept reminding Elvis that there were hundreds more like these attackers in every city. People who would like to harm him or even harm someone close to him. Yet, he still performed, still gave his very best, no matter how threatening the situation was. However, Elvis talked about this particular incident for weeks, and it worried all of us because he never quite got over this one. He constantly carried around their police records, showing them to us at every opportunity, saying, "These guys aren't bad, they are double bad." He got so worked up about the whole thing that when he came down with pneumonia a short time later, some of us couldn't help but wonder if it was partly because of the frenzy he'd worked himself into over these guys that had attacked him. But I guess when there's another show to do, you can't worry for long that someone's tried to murder you or that you have a life-threatening disease. As Elvis said, "Aw, I just got a little touch of pneumonia. Nothing serious." Oh, gosh. Evidently, that one really bothered him. They aren't bad. They're double bad. Of course, because the show was expensive to produce, the Colonel booked the largest auditoriums or gymnasiums available at that time. They were all gigantic places to play, and the audiences were always very loud and boisterous, but nothing can ever equal, for sheer size, our experience in Houston at the Astrodome. There were 90,000 people in the Astrodome the first time we played there. 90,000. That was huge back then. So huge. They didn't have football stadiums like they have now. The Elvis show was only one part of a giant rodeo that day. Stop and think a minute about 90,000 people being enclosed under one roof. That is larger than the average American city, and when you are on stage there, you feel like a tiny ant. The Astrodome is so large that it even has its own weather and cloud formations inside the arena. I am not kidding. You can see clouds inside of this gigantic place. We were all amused on this particular day, especially Elvis, that his show was the 8th event in the rodeo. I think the 7th event was calf roping. A Jeep carried Elvis out onto the arena, and we followed him on a stage which was being towed by a second Jeep. After we were positioned on the dirt floor in the middle of the huge arena, Elvis continued circling and waving to the fans. Because he was like in the middle of this big arena, and there was dirt all around him. So they didn't have chairs. So, on the dirt. So the people were like kind of far away. So Elvis went around in a Jeep. I feel like this was 19... When was this? It was either 70, 71, 72. It was earlier, in the earlier part of the 70s. Performing there is a never-to-be-forgotten experience. That afternoon, we did our usual opening number and moved on to the next one. After our first number, there was not a sound of applause, not a cheer. Now, this is really disconcerting. Here are 90,000 people who have paid for their tickets, and they are not even reacting. We started on our second number, a little baffled about our reception, I will have to admit. And suddenly, as we were just into our next song, there was a deafening roar, and we couldn't hear the band, the music, or anything else but people screaming. We kept on singing, and finally it dawned on me. The place was so big that the sound of their cheering took 7 seconds to get back to us on stage. It's because they were separated from them. So they're like, no one's cheering. Oh my gosh. Elvis was probably looking over at them going, oh my gosh, because he was real nervous about going to this, because I guess because it was so big, he didn't think he'd be able to fill a 90,000 people stadium. And so he was nervous, but then it was sold out. So then I guess he was like, wow, can't believe it's sold out. But then he's up there singing and he doesn't hear any response. And he's looking over at the band and the singers and like, what in the world? But okay, let's just keep going. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, you just picture like a big fan turned on, blowing them all away. The deafening sound of, the deafening roar. That's funny. So they had to like adjust to that. Conversely, we were into our next song before the end of our last song had reached the audience. That went on all night long, and it took a lot of getting used to. Actually, I never got used to it. There is nothing worse than being in the middle of a song and hearing a roar from the crowd, only to know that they are or were cheering for the song you had completed several seconds prior to the cheers. To give you a better example, let's say it's the end of the song, and that end is ta-dam, which we sing as our arms are outstretched, signifying this is the end. Ta-dam! Now, 3 1/2 seconds later, that ta-dam is finally reaching the audience. And 3 1/2 seconds after this, their applause is finally getting back to us. In other words, there exists a 7-second time delay, and we are already in to the next number. Besides this, everything went out and came back sounding like an echo. We had to watch the drummer since we couldn't hear him, which was quite different from what we had trained ourselves to do. We just had to cope with the strangeness of our own echo competing with the echo of the applause. It was all so odd, I wanted to run, just get out of the place. But then again, it was so funny I got tickled and struggled not to laugh. They'd be getting hit back and forth and they're like, oh my gosh, laughing. That's funny. If I thought most of our audiences were wild, I couldn't have dreamed what the crowd in Niagara Falls was like. I redefined the word hysteria in my own mind that night. There were people crying and screaming, tears streaming down their faces. You could feel their intensity. It was as if they might tear you apart if they reached you. They had stationed women ushers in red jackets all around the stage, who just weren't strong enough to hold back the crowds. What appeared at first to be ecstasy and tears of joy on the faces of those I could see closest to the stage turned out to be ghastly expressions of them pleading for help and tears of pain. It was a raging human sea pressing forward onto the stage, and my stomach turned as I underwent the sickening realization that those in front were crying out for their lives. It was a terrible sight, seeing them slowly crushed against the stage. Despite their many broken bones and lacerations, we tried to help pull them onto the stage where they would be safer. This is a terrible memory for me, and I still have nightmares about it. The ironic thing is, while I was helplessly witnessing hands and ribs being broken at the foot of the stage, we were all singing, "Take my hand, my whole life too, for I can't help falling in love with you. Take my hand and my whole life too, for I can't help falling in love with you." I believe women can handle almost any job, but being a guard in a crowd like the one in Niagara Falls took physical strength far beyond the capacity of the majority of either sex. I guess the worst part of it all was watching the fans get hurt as they fought over a scarf or tried to get closer to the stage. I saw one woman being choked by two other women as they tried to get an Elvis scarf away from her. It was tangled around her neck, probably because Elvis put it there, and the two women were tugging from both sides, and the scarf was cutting off her breath. I saw people get trounced and women holding babies actually being crushed as they were pushed closer and closer to the stage by enthusiastic, unknowing fans. It is difficult to stand up on a stage singing bop, doo-ah, doo-ah, da, bop, doo-ah, 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 bop, doo-ah, 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 bop, or a gospel song as people are jumping off of balconies, babies' lives are endangered, and bones are being broken in the crowd's mindless determination to get closer to Elvis. Golly. Can you imagine what it would be like today? So many people feel so entitled to do whatever they want. They just be walking all over everybody, not caring about anyone. Just so, oh my gosh. Maybe it's good that Elvis was back then and not now. A friend, after observing one big Elvis concert, said, "Kathy, it must be like an angel singing in hell. All that mayhem out in the audience has to be nerve-wracking." I think that is putting it mildly. Elvis saw the same kind of carnage I was seeing, yet he seemed better able to cope with it. And he did try to control the crowd with the pace of the show. He was very aware of the power of various styles of music to evoke a mood or elicit a particular response at any given moment. He was also extremely sensitive to the audience's collective mood and could gauge and anticipate their reactions. When things looked like they were getting out of control, Elvis would call on me to sing Heavenly Father, and it seemed to work every time. However, I will admit that there were times when I was singing a very nervous Heavenly Father. I never heard her sing Heavenly Father by herself. He would hand me the mic and say, "Kid, you're on your own," and then he would conduct the orchestra behind me. Elvis also controlled the show by passing out the scarves, which is something that came from his study of other religions. The Tibetan monks pass out colorful scarves as a way of greeting friends instead of a handshake. Interesting. Elvis liked this idea and gave thousands of scarves away every year in all different colors, and fans went crazy trying to get hold of one. Yep. The monks passed out colorful scarves, so he gave out thousands of colorful scarves. If Elvis noticed a crowd getting out of hand and there were people getting crushed in an area, he would toss a scarf to another section to move some of the crowd in that direction. Live and learn. But in spite of Elvis's efforts, the bodyguards and the watchful eyes, things really got out of hand one night in Roanoke, Virginia. I was standing at my microphone and Elvis walked over behind me and said seriously in a low voice, "Follow me, honey. Just follow me." Follow me, honey, just follow me. I didn't know what he was talking about. The crowd was hushed, quieter than they had been all evening, and it seemed almost peaceful. Elvis got a sense something wasn't right. And he was like, follow me. Suddenly, a woman dressed in black leather leapt up on the stage and knocked the microphone over, and I lost my balance and fell down. The next thing I knew, there were people from the audience all over the stage. Later, the newspaper reported there were 300 on stage. I somehow managed to get out and onto the bus, and we sped away. But before I left the stage, I saw the rioters pick up Charlie Hodge and throw him right out into the audience. Charlie just sort of rolled into the crowd, and then the audience sent him flying back to the people on the stage. It was really panic time. Charlie wasn't hurt, nor was anyone else, which was a real miracle considering the frenzy of those people who had stormed the stage. Later, Elvis told me how he knew it was coming, because it suddenly became so quiet. When there was a hushed kind of eerie silence, then you know something is about to happen, he told me. And that's when you move as fast as you can. I wonder why the crowd got so quiet. I guess they were all looking at her instead of him. Then Elvis added, early in my career, I was on a truck bed one night, and the crowd became ominously quiet just before they turned the whole thing over. I learned my lesson that night. I didn't suspect a thing, I told him. I thought everything was fine, and I didn't see one person until that woman knocked me and the mic over. When I turned around, there was a sea of people, and I was caught totally unaware. I know. I tried to warn you, but you didn't understand. Next time you'll know and be ready, Elvis said. Well, I might know, but I would never be ready for scenes like that. I was really very calm when it was happening, but when it was over, I simply fell apart, thinking of what could have happened to Charlie or any of the others who were really like family to me. From that time on, I was on guard more than ever. After that riot, Elvis decided to get jackets for identification because the bodyguards and police could not tell the good guys from the bad guys. These made us feel a bit more secure. I guess they got those red jackets, and it said like Elvis Presley or something on the side of it. Taking care of business. Here we go. We had red nylon windbreakers for summer, and the winter version resembled high school letterman's jackets, red with black leather sleeves. Both jackets featured the TCB emblem with Elvis on Tour. That's what it was. I knew it wasn't Elvis Presley. Elvis on Tour emblazoned on the front with the TCB emblem. My summer jacket was so large, 2 people could easily fit into it. I still have mine, but now I see these same jackets on people everywhere. I guess some manufacturer decided to mass market them. Yep, you can buy them. Buy them at stores. Graceland. There is a particular power that certain individuals have, an ability to generate enormous amounts of energy to crowds, arouse their spirits, and raise them to a pitch of excitement. Once this level of energy is aroused, the cycle is completed as it all is redirected again back to the originator. Elvis exhibited this power before crowds of up to more than 100,000 as they concentrated on his every movement. President John Kennedy had it. So did Martin Luther King. This kind of energy was also transmitted by Hitler, who used it despicably. Elvis never used his power for evil. In fact, he was generous and giving to a fault, and truly loved his fans, was grateful and kind to them. There were many politicians, by the way, who tried to use Elvis's power for their own gains, but while Elvis held strong political convictions, he would have nothing to do with these schemes. I want to go back to this. A particular power that certain individuals have, an ability to generate enormous amounts of energy to crowds, arouse their spirits, and raise them to a pitch of excitement. And once this level of energy is aroused, the cycle is completed as it is all redirected again back to the originator. That's how he's like, he would feel that energy from the crowd. That's just crazy. June talks about it, or he describes it to June in his own words. It's just crazy. Elvis was primarily a strong conservative, but tempered with a compassionate liberalism. He had conservative thoughts, but he was compassionate. He was patriotic to a fault and believed in giving back to his country a share of what it had given to him. He even had the IRS prepare all his income tax forms. He also thought it was important to support the president, regardless of his political party. He was very well versed on current events and would discuss them endlessly, from such matters as the Shelby County sheriff elections to which bills were pending in the U.S. Senate, to international border disputes in the Mideast. Elvis was a very informed man and an avid reader. Elvis said to me in 1970, and it is clear to me, and it is as clear to me as if it were yesterday. My mission in life is to make people happy. No heavy messages, no political speeches. He believed the more you gave, the more you received, and he certainly proved this theory time and time again. No matter how much Elvis gave away, more kept coming in. I think we can all be grateful that Elvis would never use his power for anything but for what he believed to be his mission on this earth. I was asked once in an interview if some crowds were more intense than others. I think the crowds in the South were more emotional. Of course, Elvis was from the South. In their eyes, he was one of their people. He belonged to them. He had been raised in their part of the country, had gone to their schools, sung in their churches. He was a hometown boy no matter what town in the South we played. Elvis also had a great rapport with the Southerners. He spoke their language, had lived the kind of life they lived, and sang the music that originated on their front porches. So it is no wonder the audiences in the South were more emotional. Yes, I feel all that. However, his foreign audiences were also pretty enthusiastic. There were fan clubs in Japan, England, Belgium, France, just about everywhere. Travel agencies would arrange for tours to the U.S. in order for people to attend some of Elvis's concerts. Now, you have to realize that some of these people had been collecting Elvis memorabilia for up to 20 years, and this was the first time they had ever seen him in person. So after all that anticipation, they got overly excitable. Yeah, so you think if someone started following him in 1956, and it's 1976, or even 1955, I don't know if they would have heard him in 55. They probably didn't hear him until 56 when he got on TV. Because the music, until the Colonel got him, was mostly in the South. It was very regional. He was regional, very popular regionally. But that's where they could travel to. But once the Colonel got hold of him, he took him to New York, put him on TV, and RCA started doing his music and sending it out everywhere. So probably 56. So if someone started being a fan in 56, and now it's 1976, yeah, 20 years, or even 75 or 74 or 73, you're close to 20 years. When I tried to dissect the phenomenon that was Elvis Presley, there are no borders or regional barriers. He was idolized in every part of the country, big cities and small towns, as well as in villages and the metropolises of Europe and many nations in the Far East. He could not be categorized and filed away like most entertainers. He had a magic of his own that touched the poor, the middle class, and the rich. His image was singular, and his appeal was universal. He was Elvis. Wow, crazy. So she talks about the crazy people, and then she talks about the fans. What it's like to be on stage, what it's like to be traveling with him, then it's what it's like to be on stage with him and what they saw from the stage. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And they did this so much those 7 years. So much. Alrighty. Well, we are going to be done with this day, with this reading. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.